All right, we're going to get started here in just a second. Let's see. Let me just share this through the network. And we got 8 people in the house already. Welcome. If these shows resonate, would you please share so we can stay above these ridiculous algorithms with Facebook? All right, let's see. What's up, Jake? Beth? All righty. Let's see. Okay, we're ready to roll. All right. Okay. Hey, John, I see you there. Let me just put on the intro real quick and share through the network. But I don't see the video signal. Okay, I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you. Let me just put this on real quick and I'll do it while I'm playing this. All right. Just 1 second. We got it. Get the show started. We bring John up. Let's see here, John McIntosh. We got John McIntosh on, our beloved brother. He's out there every day on social media putting his stuff out. It's good quality intel coming from a very down-to-earth, balanced place. Let's see if he's okay. Here we go, John. There's the video link. All right. Can you hear me, John? There we go. There we go. Let me unmute.
Hear me?
Yeah, I got you now. What's happening, brother? It's good to see your smiling face.
It's good to see you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on again. It's a powerful day. You know, Morgan's telling me, you know, about a week ago, she's like, you know, these things always just kind of happen. I give people dates and then everything lines up. You know, the 6 is a big deal. It seems like the 12-3 was a big deal, you know, Tesla 369. And the 6, so we got you and Franco and another strong masculine on today. So it's a powerful day. It's a good day to bare our souls. How about that? I know you've been traveling a little bit, you know, and out and about and living the life. You know, I got a message from one of my homeboys down in Houston, kind of from the streets, you know, and he sent me a note. I said hello to him, and then he said, "You're doing it. You're living the life." And I'm like, it doesn't feel like that all the time. You know, some of these directions Spirit gives you, our higher selves gives it, but we do it, and there's a lot of people doing it. Do you see a change after all these years that you've been locked in and awake? Do you see the collective? I know you see the collective expansion, but do you see it accelerating? I mean, dramatically accelerating?
Well, we're in that phase that you and I have talked about a couple of times. It's still always, it's a dream, but within the dream, there's this shift that moves from the, in this case, the divine masculine, which has reached the peak of dysfunction, into a neutral phase, a couple of thousand years, and then back into the divine feminine. And this is about a 26,000 year cycle. So as it moves into the neutral phase, there is a collapsing of the dysfunctional phase, whatever it was, masculine or feminine, in this case, dysfunctional divine masculine, and accelerates as it, you could say, is pulled into the neutral phase, or if you like, a balancing phase. Remembering again that this is still just a dream. But that's what's happening in our part of the dream galaxy right now. So you could say that in the dream, the 2012 was a demarcation line that had been approached for about 100 years as we moved into the Aquarian age and the age of air, with all the various inventions oriented to air, such as radio and airplanes, internet, television, communication, acceleration, all of these kinds of things are related to the air side. So as we moved into that phase, the masculine became more and more obviously dysfunctional. News media and instant communication became available arguably from the 50s with television up into the advent of the internet, which was even more instant and accessible to everyone. Handheld phones could register what's going on in the street, so to speak. So things that were hidden could no longer be hidden. And as a result of that, awareness had to expand along with anger, which is the natural reaction of fear when you're still stuck in the mind or in the false self. So that has expanded exponentially since 2012 and continues to and will until the entire dysfunctional masculine has collapsed, perhaps next week, perhaps the next 100 years, but it's happening very, very quickly all over the world. And for most, this is terrifying, confusing, very difficult to understand, and fearful. But the truth of it is, what is full must be empty before you can move into a phase where truth can pour in completely. Otherwise, it's mixed with the dysfunction. And you see a lot of that even now with what I call, or what Muji is called, and I like very much, the Hollywood spirituality, trying to fix the world.
The trend.
World is not fixable.
The fad. It's a fad.
Well, it's another trend, another phase, trying to use spirituality to make the world better. But that's not the purpose of the world. The purpose of the world, universe, grand dream, as I call it, is for God to experience itself and to taste and savor contrast. Without separation, without the belief in separation, you cannot have manifestation. And without manifestation, you don't have a universe. So, but the nature of manifestation is separation, is opposition, is therefore chaos and conflict at various levels of balance or imbalance. It's the nature of it.
So it's like a concentric circle. And so they clash, there's a birth, they go back around, separate again. This is this 26,000 years you're
over and over again. But as we move into this let's say 2,000 year phase, the masculine and feminine are ostensibly balanced. And as a result of that, the opportunity for awakening on a mass scale becomes more and more possible, and has every time this has occurred, so that more and more of the slumbering selves, there's only one self, but the slumbering facets of the self have the opportunity to reawaken to the one self. And this is happening. But it requires a total surrender, and not many are ready for that
yet. Well, okay, so first of all, it's like, and this, add to it, modify it, correct it, whatever you want to call it. It can't be stopped. on one hand, it can't be stopped. So it's like, the self-awareness to me becomes not only self-awareness of self, but self-awareness of outer self, which is everything that I'm looking at, right? And so once you start to understand that, this is what's happening, which you so eloquently explained, it's like now we're conscious and present in this moment, that we're aware of what's happening based on our knowledge of it. So what do we do with it? And to me, it's like that, those two circles coming together, and that's that point of awareness where everything meets. And I love what you said about the anger coming up, because that other side of us that wants to resist that we're individuals, so to speak. But if we can align in that moment and say, okay, we've been here before, so to speak, what are we going to do different? Todd and John are going to collaborate, and we're going to just see what happens, or whatever the case is. But I love how you explain that, because that chaos, the chaotic, all comes back together. It always comes back together. It's like a big loop, isn't
The chaos is the blessing that brings the false self, and you could call it a naughty boy or girl, to its knees. It's difficult in the extreme, but it's a blessing, because ultimately the false self will surrender. Call it whatever you want, surrender. The ancients called it devotion. And this allows, it's like a chink in the armor that allows the slumbering self, God's self, which has been camouflaged by conditioning. The conditioning is the disguise that makes up the false self. It's a chink in the armor that allows the false self to then hear, you could say, the voice of truth, which is just itself in a completely awakened state. It's the self talking to the self.
Yeah.
So that's the value of extreme contrast, which we're now in it. It's expanding as the dysfunction rises to the surface, cannot be ignored any longer, can't be hidden any longer, and so therefore is terrifying to the mind, or the false self-identity or person that believes that it is a person, believes it is living in a real world, in a universe.
Yeah.
It gets out of the way, in a way, and that allows the self to talk to itself.
Yeah.
And so then the truth, the light, the sun, if you like, peeks from behind the clouds, which is a metaphor for the conditioning. And then ultimately, eventually, the self then capitulates completely and falls into some kind of inner search. And there are thousands of ways to do it. Ultimately, they all dovetail into self-inquiry.
Yeah.
Everything ends there.
I love this too, because if in respect to the fact that it continues to cycle back, and as it moves further away, it creates a higher level of separation as it starts to come together, and the source, God, goddess, whatever, starts to experience awareness in all these individual fractals, that this is the creative force. This chaos coming back into self-awareness is a creative force. And it seems to be all about equalizing or removing or integrating the illusion of separation. And I love what you said too. I think you said this on one of the shows, like this one cycle is a patriarchal dominated cycle. The next one might be a matriarchal dominated cycle. And I think that's important to remember too, because one of the primary points of separation is gender, number one. And I don't mean gender so much, because I think there must be some importance to the fact that we have physical genders in this dream. There must be some purpose to it. Maybe that's the last point of unity consciousness when you remove that. But what I was getting at is there's so much history and so much feeling in the cellular, all of us. There's been this separation. There's been this war of the sexes. There's been this, it's always been patriarchal. Let's just say, we could easily say this in the last cycle, it's always been matriarchal. But deep down embedded in us, there's this degree of separation that has to be removed as well. It's part of the story. And I guess these elements of the story all have had some level of separation in it. And as we move into this higher awareness, which excites me because then it becomes an actualization, an expansion, a rebirth, so to speak, like you said, to keep the universe going, because that's what it does. But as we do that, that I think that point in the story of what's happened in this dream into the divine feminine starts to go away, and the male energy or the male frequency starts to feel less guilty and less blamed, you know, and on the other side, I'm sure there's things they have to work through as well. And of course, I'm speaking of energies, but back to what you were saying, to restate it, this time around, this is how the story went. Next time around, it might be the total opposite, right? With the feminine in charge, let's just say, as an example.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, we don't need to get rid of anything. What happens is a blending or a transformation. You could call it a balancing. The divine feminine doesn't get rid of the masculine. It helps to balance the masculine, and the masculine balances with the feminine as a result of the crumbling of the dysfunction that has built up over the 12,000 years that it's been in dominance in this particular cycle. Again, I like to emphasize, of the dream, because none of it's real, but it's the story that's happening on a galactic basis within the dream, or at least within our star system. Also, star system is part of the universe, and the universe is a dream. So when that's clear, this is the most important thing, is to get clear on the fact that the world, the universe, and the body is not real. That's the quick way to find one's way back into the truth. As long as there's a mental gymnastic attempt to understand all this stuff and figure it out, and analyze it and come up with solutions, of which there are thousands and thousands of spiritual modalities involved in, then there will be, as the Course in Miracles says, a seeking and never finding, because the mind loves phenomena. It loves these gymnastics. It loves all these different ways and means, because it distracts consciousness from looking within at itself. As soon as you accept that the body and the universe, the world, is not real, you move on to what I would call the fast track to freedom. That's the only thing I ever talk about.
And then the thing about, you were talking about with chaos, basically is what you were saying. Chaos is the impetus, at a minimum, the impetus for new creation. As the chaos, which is extreme separation, starts to come together, then a creative aspect of the I don't know, almost like the base nature of creation starts to bud and flower and so on. So if that's the way it works in these cycles, on a collective level, and we're all fractals of it. And now here we are in this particular incarnation at this particular time. How do you translate that, or how do you convey that to one of us in the 8 billion that are on Earth? In other words, I want to manifest.
8 already? Wow.
Well, 7. I'm just rounding up. So, but I mean, in terms of, because people want to manifest, and I think we all have our own journey of, I want some money and all this, and you've talked so eloquently about that as well, because you had everything, lost everything, and then let go, and things start to come back to you. But how do you take that generalization and the accuracy of it, and the formation of it, and implant that into an individual who says, I want to do this, I want to do that? How do I become a master manifester, master creator?
Oh, well, manifest would be the way I would put it. If one wants to play in the dream, and asleep or awake, but let's say they're asleep, as most of humanity still is, then manifesting whatever one wants within the dream is, as they say, easy peasy. The mind doesn't believe that, because all evidence to the contrary. But to manifest what you want in the dream is extremely simple. As I pointed out in the last little handbook I wrote, From Magician to Master, we touched on it the last time. I can just reiterate very quickly that
Absolutely.
if you have an intention, call it a goal or a target, whatever it is, doesn't matter. And it is a burning desire, and you put your attention on that, then you have the three basic ingredients: intention, attention, and burning desire, or passion. I like to call it passion. And you stay in that. You could call it a vortex, and you add a certain amount of work, but work is very, very small portion of it, according to what the world says. No pain, no gain is totally false. There's very little work involved when you allow the universal force of those three things: intention, attention, and passion, to do its thing. It's part of the way the universe is created.
Yeah.
It takes over, and it will manifest whatever it is within your intention, good or bad, according to what the mind considers good or bad. You must believe in this. That's part of it as well. If you don't believe in it, if you're shaky about it, then it's not going to work.
And I think would it behoove us to be conscious in terms of our, respect to our integrity, to be,
No,
so that we don't get
not
our.
at all. No, you can be an absolute. Well,
I mean, if we want to have a smooth ride.
No, the smooth ride is not possible when you're dreaming. You're going to have chaos. Yeah. You're going to be in a roller coaster no matter what, because the conditioning that makes up the false self, attachments, expectations, and identifications tied to memory and imagination, that's the conditioning, that's the clouds that hides the sun that you are, is the roller coaster of happiness and sorrow. It's inevitable as long as you believe it's real. So no matter what you accomplish in this world, whether you become, great artist, musician, tycoon, philanthropist, dictator, from one extreme to the other, you are going to experience chaos.
Yeah.
I was looking at an advertisement on the way home today that was for a relaxing chair, and it said the end of stress. And the idea is that you get into this chair and you're stress-free, which is ridiculous. It's like lying on the beach in the sun, perfect weather, perfect conditions, palm trees, turquoise sea, perfect sand, no insects. Everything is perfect. Whatever your favorite drink is beside you, and whoever is perfect beside you. But in your mind, there is this cacophony of stress going on. What about this? What about that? I need to make this phone call, or I'm expecting a call. I mean, there are thousands of thoughts going on. No matter, unless of course you sedate, or you distract, or you run, but still they're going to come back. So the integrity that you're speaking of, tied to the ability to manifest anything you want, is not going to sublimate the roller coaster ride that is inevitable as long as you believe you're a person.
Right.
It doesn't happen.
And I guess that's what I'm saying is that at some point you have this level of awareness where you can say, I can control what I'm experiencing. I don't need to get my head beat every day. You know what I mean? And
you can control what you manifest, but you cannot control the experience.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. So your levels, your that's always part of the equation. The stress, as they described in that
chaos.
In that chaos.
Conflict. Yeah.
But it's just a matter of what part of the spectrum you're existing in, and which I guess is based on your past contrasting experiences and your past experiences.
Well, call it karma or call it conditioning. It's the same thing.
Now,
your level of stress, your level of confusion, your level of chaos, your level of happiness and sorrow is directly related to your own unique conditioning.
Yeah. Let's talk about emotions. You said, well, in your book, you state the three basic things are intention, attention, and then this passion, this burning desire. Mm-hmm. Is there a relationship between the more human part of, when we think of emotions, the more human part of our emotions, is there a relation to that passion? Is there is there a positive energetic force that we can pull from these full range of emotions, sometimes brutal emotions or whatever they are, these wake-up calls? Is there somehow that we can take that energy and put it into passion? Is it the same thing? Does it even exist? Does that equation, does it even exist?
We'd have to first of all decide what does it mean to be human. There is no such thing as a human being. This is a grand illusion. It's another word for saying I'm a person. You're not a person. You're the God self hidden behind the illusion of a personal identity, which is called a person with a name and passport and a license and all the rest of it, and a history, and a hopeful future. It's an illusion. It's not real. And as long as it's clung to, there'll always be this attempt to make it better. The whole self-improvement industry is based on that.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that I think there's enough people out there, and you're one of them, obviously, that are, that have acknowledged and allowed, accepted, and owned what we might call our multidimensionality, even if that's just pure, I'm God, period. But I'm in Todd Medina's body right now, and I'm conscious most of the time as Todd Medina. And now, whether it's a game or a dream or whatever we want to call it, we're here to, I would imagine, maximize our experience based on our level of awareness. In other words, to enjoy, to be happy, to find some grace and beauty and love and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's an illusion. Yeah. That's what most of the world thinks is true. And as long as they think that's true, they're on the roller coaster of happiness and sorrow.
Well, I can honestly say, and I can only use myself as an example, I'm not on a roller coaster of happiness and sorrow. I'm actually on an incline, ascending up an incline. And I'm not saying this to give myself a pat on the back or anything. Now, from a human level, the human perspective, which we know is not true, it doesn't look like, a choice or a lifestyle or a journey that a lot of people would pick, but I'm having a blast. And I'm looking to accentuate it and expand it, and enhance it, because I'm here and I'm conscious and it feels good. And whether I'm up there, laying in my silk stockings and smoking a big cigar and drinking a whiskey, I'm watching this show. I'm feeling some kind of energy of expansion that feels good, So I don't know if that's a different mindset. I don't consider myself a human. I respect this body. I respect this journey and my brothers and sisters, so to speak. But I also know who I am. I'm a multidimensional. I'm God, basically. I mean, we can just cut to the chase. And I'm or one fractal at a minimum of it, which I really think it's all the same thing. And I'm in this space, and I'm not lost in the dream. I'm not perfect, but I'm not lost in the dream. I actually want to utilize this expanded wisdom, love, courage, and all that stuff, peace, and be that master manifester that you talk about.
Well, knock yourself out. You're definitely deeply involved in the dream, and many people feel this way.
But here's the thing: if it's making me happy, then how could it be? What's the big deal?
Well, happiness, the happiness roller coaster can last for years. When I was, so-called rich and famous, I was unaware, mostly because I was distracted by, the ability to do anything in the world that I wanted to do. I was distracted, so I was mostly happy. And full of all kinds of ideas of what to do, where to go, people to meet, things to accomplish, badges to add to my badges, and awards and recognition and all this kind of stuff. I was very distracted for 15 years intensely.
But you were chasing happiness.
Well, it didn't feel like I was chasing happiness.
But I'm not chasing happiness. What I see is alignment. The more I align, the more these things that you described earlier in the show come to me. It's just like it just comes to you. It's a lot like your story that you told before, where you said you had all this, what you're talking about now, and then you had your wake-up call and got thrown off the cliff. And then you let go, and then these things start aligning, coming into your life. That's what I'm talking about. I don't.
I understand very clearly what you're talking about. The self does not, it doesn't think, but let's say for the sake of discussion, I'll use the word consciousness or conscious communication as thinking. We'll use the word thinking in this case. The self doesn't think like this at all. It experiences the dream completely as the dream, totally unattached to the dream, without any desires of any kind. It never thinks about expanding its repertoire of toys. It knows that everything or experiences, call it whatever you want, never thinks this way. It's in a constant, unbroken state of joy, as I said, as a flat line. That's where I am. I'm always there.
You're flatlined in
joy.
Well, maybe the way I'm referring to in the context, happiness is the same thing. I'm not pursuing happiness. Let me put it a different way. Let's say that, well, not let's say, there's one source, and it is what it is. And it says, okay, and I'm just going to put this in certain terms, but it's strictly metaphor. So we're going to create a computer program, and then or a video game, and we set it up the way we set it up. We get plugged into the video game. We realize who we are in the video game, and then we say, well, I'm in the video game. Let's see how many, let's see what we can do with it. You know what I mean? That's kind of how I feel about it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a good metaphor for what God, consciousness, one, I am, has manifested as the universe and all the worlds, let's say, within the universe to play in.
Yeah.
But there's no conditioning. It's in the world, but not of the world. In the universe, but not of the universe.
Yeah.
So there isn't any attachment to anything within this projection on the screen of consciousness.
Which would include, there's 26,000-year cycles. Which would include anything we've talked about. which brings us back always to, I don't know anything. But I do know this, I'm conscious, and in my own, not for anyone else's proof, or, I'll just speak in my own right as an example. So I'm good with that. And I'm here. And I'm going to when I say make the best of it, I don't mean like I'm chasing something, but I'm going to have some fun with it, I guess is what I'm talking about.
Okay.
But I mean, in reality, I mean, how do I know, this computer program is full of programs, right? Full of whatever you call it, programming. How do I know the 26,000-year cycle isn't one of those programs? Because if I'm,
it is one of the programs.
Okay, so if I'm going to attach myself to that and convey that, or things that I would convey, because I don't want to single you out, because other people do talk about the 26,000-year cycle. But for instance, if I say, 8 years ago I got downloaded Soulogy, they told me it's the other side of truth, and this is the only way. I'm not that attached to Soulogy. I've let go of it many, many times. I'm in a beautiful relationship. I've let go of that many, many times. And there is some type of enhancement. There's some type of higher clarity that comes when we do that. I'm trying to understand that. And I love talking to you because you bring things to the table that make me think.
Well, surrender has many layers. Many, many layers. Total surrender is virtually unknown on the planet. There's almost no one who's totally what I call the no matter what surrender, where they allow life to live them completely. It comes trippingly off the tongue. It's very easy to say, but total surrender, which is no matter what comes, I accept what comes. And no matter what goes, I accept what goes, period.
Right.
So there's, as you say, there's no chasing of anything at all.
Yeah.
There are no desires of anything, but there is an embracing or savoring, because when you do this, you are shifting into the awareness of who you really are, which is the self.
Yeah.
And you're allowing everything that has defined a person to fall away. Ultimately, it
Oh, is that me or you? Uh-oh. Are you on, Morgan? Nope. Oh, you back? John.
yeah, I'm here.
Okay. You froze up for a second.
Yeah, done that a lot.
Yeah, I was gonna say this too. I like what you just said, and I can relate to that. And I think a lot of people can, with what you're saying, but it's not in those warm and fuzzy moments. You know, a lot of people talk about successive traumas that they had before they quote unquote woke up, or as they're waking up. You know, and I remember I went through that for.
They're not really awake. They've had an awakening. There are
Okay. Yeah.
usually hundreds or thousands of satoris or epiphanies.
Of course.
Before
And this
a
is,
person is gone.
and like you said, each there's levels of surrender. There's levels of awakening. And what I'm getting at is I can relate to what you're saying, because I remember in the first 2 years of, well, we'll just call it 2011 and 2012, those 20 months, 24 months or whatever, there was a lot of very extreme, from a human perspective, very extreme conditions, including being homeless and walking for many miles every day and all this stuff, right? But my point is, it's not about me. My point is that my mindset at the time, or my evolution at the time, my development at the time, became very much present, very much removing the power of the illusion of this was unfair. Why did this happen to me? Why did someone die? Why are my kids gone? Or whatever the case is. And I really started, and I did find this place of I'm not Todd. I'm not human. I'm doing this, and things began to, I didn't get too excited if something bad happened, and I didn't get too excited if something good happened. And these were levels, and I wonder if that's that space you're talking about, that space which we obviously has levels of, not really being phased, I guess would be another way to put it, or not getting overexcited from the ego, whether it's something bad or something good that happens. I wonder if that's the similar type of energy
Yeah.
you're talking about.
You begin to become neutral.
Yeah, neutral
to what is. When you say yes to what is, that's a kind of neutrality. It does not mean that you agree with what is. Turn on the television for 15 minutes and switch channels, and there's 20 things that you don't agree with.
Yeah.
But you can say yes to them because they are happening.
Yeah.
So that's surrender. And if you happen to be faced with the opportunity to do something, so-called, physically do something in the moment, and you are placed there, which would be the body is placed there by the self, which is operating it, using it. You may, in fact, you, meaning the self in that case, may in fact do something, and it may even involve what may appear to be some sort of emotional reaction, such as anger.
Mm-hmm.
Emotions are tools of the mind, so they're also not real. But this may be an extrapolation of what's happening. But the self is not in any way connected to, attached to, expecting, or identifying with what's going on.
Yeah.
But it is acting because it's there for some reason, whatever it is. And it may not be anything related to, let's say, trying to fix what's going on. It may have 1,000 other systems, emanations, radiations coming off of what's happening that will touch whoever's around it and whoever may hear about it later, that seem totally unrelated in the moment. Planting seeds, if you like.
So,
and then it will walk away from it without being attached to it when that's finished, without creating some sort of a movement to fix this.
Which creates a somewhat of a conundrum, all right? Because on one hand, everything that we're looking at is talking to us. Everything we're looking at, I've created, right? I mean, everything, nothing's happening.
Your world is unique to you. Yes.
That's right. My world is unique to me. So on one hand, whatever comes at me isn't even real, right?
Right. Correct.
But on the
it's
other
a
hand,
reflection of who you're not.
right. But on the other hand, it's also got a message for me, right? I
Well,
mean,
not not on the other hand. That's what it has.
okay, so it's got a message for me, but if it's not even real, then what's the point of even listening to the message? I guess what I'm saying is there's got to be a component in this incarnation, in the equation of this incarnation, which most likely is very cyclical, and we've done it over and over again,
Yes.
that gives us an opportunity to actualize this awareness and actualize this higher level
Yes.
of understanding.
Yes.
That
Yes.
I think is what you, and maybe you can elaborate on this and
Yeah.
reference your book on it. That leads to, at least, and again, maybe I'm attached to this, but that leads to rebirth. That leads to new experiences that the universe has not been before, has not been there before. But yeah, I know you touch on that in
As
your
long
book.
as you're sleeping, you meaning anyone, as long as you're sleeping, you will come back into a world. Doesn't have to be this one, or a dimension. They're all illusions, but you will come back and have another opportunity to become fully so-called self-realized.
Yeah.
The world that you're experiencing, you meaning anyone, is a mirror. All of it is a mirror for who you are not, until you are free, until you are completely aware of the self, and then it's a completely different situation.
Then it's all you.
Well, it is all you anyway,
Right.
but you recognize everything that is as an emanation of you, which is another word for love.
Yeah.
No matter how it shows up. So things that look terrible are still looked at by the self as love. They are not judged in any way at all, because the self knows that they're not really happening. It just sees an emanation of itself as love, an extension of itself, because there's no separation.
But
You
it,
know,
but I guess without attaching to without attaching to the dream, is there not an opportunity when an aspect of God, you or me, comes into a higher awareness in the game, in the video game, in the program, where they have an opportunity to expand the universe
the universe.
by I would say by free will and conscious thought, and that's probably blasphemy to you.
No, well, that's the self doesn't know anything about blasphemy. That's just a made up word by the mind. The world that exists is complete, and the universe that exists, in no matter what format that it exists to you specifically, or to any other you specifically, is unique to you or them.
Yeah.
It's unique, totally unique.
Yeah.
A scientist, an astronomer, etc., may have a vast knowledge, so-called knowledge, of what the universe is, what it's capable of, what it's been doing, where it might go, all of these kinds of things. So its perception of its universe, which is unique to it, them, is vast, whereas to someone that has no knowledge whatever of even what the stars are, they're in some part of the world where the educational system has not explained anything about what the stars are. They don't know anything about it. They may be living in a village, and all they know is they're a square mile. They have no idea. Their universe is very tiny, but their world and the other's world is a mirror of who they are not, which is why people see the same thing showing up disguised in different ways, showing up, even marrying the same person in a different disguise, over and over and over again, until they're willing to stop looking out there, stop pointing the finger, stop condemning, stop judging what's out there, and turn the finger inside and say, well, what does this mean?
Yeah. Yes.
And then go below the story, drama, into the feeling of it, and see, how does this relate to the conditioning that's made it happen? That's when you're really starting to become aware. So there is an awareness of this opportunity. That's an awareness.
Yeah.
An awareness of the possibility of more awareness, you could say.
Okay. Yeah.
But until the
which
conditioning
is
is gone,
yeah.
you're not really aware until the conditioning is transformed.
Well, and everything has levels. So you can be
Well,
more.
it seems to.
Yeah,
That's a dream as well, but it
yeah.
seems to have levels. Yeah, everything in the
So let me
dream
put it
is a
another
dream.
way. Is first of all, is there an objective? Is there an
Yes,
objective?
yes,
Okay. So
yes.
before you answer that, so is the objective uh, to to have these experiences and to actualize an expanded awareness, or is the objective to just have the experience, um, or both?
It depends on whether you're free or not free. There is only one objective when you're not free, and that is to become free. That's the only purpose anyone has in life. It's not to go out and get a Rolls Royce. It's not to go out and get the perfect body or to have the perfect cuisine, or to have the perfect friends or the perfect vacations or the perfect job or the perfect creations of, a beautiful piece of music. None of those things are what it's for. All of those things are for one purpose only, and that is to remember who you really are. Everything in the world, everything in everyone's unique individual world is oriented to that one purpose, to waking up to who you are. Once you know who you are, if you're still in a body experiencing the dream, then you're in the dream but not of the dream, as it's been said. Then you're savoring contrast without any attachment to it, without any
I get
condition.
that.
Yeah,
But now there's
that's what God does
well,
when it's aware.
but there's another school of thought that might be the same exact
This
equation.
is not thought, and it's not a school. This is the
Okay,
truth.
let me put it this way. When I say school of thought,
Mm.
okay, I'm talking about, because I don't care if it's you or me or anyone else, and probably even including Jesus, based on what I know about him, Buddha, and everybody else. Nobody has all the answers. Nobody knows 100%. Nobody. Okay. Now, what I'm trying to say is there's a school of thought that talks about souls. And I'm not saying I advocate them or I don't advocate them, but I respect everybody's reality. And in this school of thought, a soul will say, I'm going to go down and have this incarnation on earth and play this video game, and I'm going to focus strictly on arrogance, or biasness or prejudiceness or something like that. There's no element of free or sovereignty, at least not in terms of what we're talking about, in this person's blueprint or in this person's plan, in their plan of action. Inherently everybody's moving to sovereignty, or if this is a game, and everyone's having their own experience and it is reality to them, could that experience not be something totally different than what you're thinking or doing and what I'm thinking or doing?
Let's get back to what you said that's far more important than this, and that is nobody has all the answers. Anyone who is free has absolutely no answers. They have none. They're empty. They're nothing. And when the moment arises, when some kind of call it an answer, is required, then that answer appears spontaneously. It's the only thing that they know in that moment.
Yeah.
Totally. That's it. So, and there is no one there to have an answer because there is no person. You see, this is far more important than anything we've been talking about. That there is no person that has all the answers because they're talking about the knowledge of the mind, and the mind is the person. And it's all nonsense. It's all a dream. But God, living inside a body, is absolutely empty, totally nothing. And when the question comes, if they ever speak at all, many live totally in silence where the real power is asked a question, then what they say is absolute truth. There's no gray area. It's not conjecture or perception or opinion. It's absolute truth. And there is no argument about it. And there's no attempt to validate it. And there's no attempt to aggrandize a self because they know the truth. They just say it. It's accepted or it's not accepted.
Yeah.
That's how the self, when it's fully aware, functions. There is only one purpose to this world, and that is to wake up. So you can call that sovereignty if you like. That's the only purpose. That's it. And And until you wake up, then everything that's going on is a dream within a roller coaster of chaos, happiness and sorrow, everything.
What's your perspective on other video games? And you mentioned
Once again, I don't have any perspective.
Well,
I have no
I have
opinion.
to speak in. I have to try to communicate.
I
in
know
human
you got to
terms.
use
And,
the language. I understand. Yeah.
But I mean, in terms of, I mean, these video games,
Yeah.
these other planets, other universes, other incarnations, other types of species you embody.
It's
Is
God.
is it all about?
It's all a dream. All of it is just a different dream.
I'm not saying that, but you said the objective is
Within every single manifestation, within the grand illusion of the universe, or universes, if you like, all of it, there was only one single objective, and that is to fully awaken to the God that you are, the I am, the consciousness, whatever you want to call it, that you are.
But then again,
That's
if
the
we
only
are,
objective.
but if we already know we are, then why do we need to
No,
wake
no,
up?
that's just mental. That's just saying, well, I know I'm God. Well,
No,
there
no,
are all
no,
kinds of
no.
spiritual people
You
walking around
said,
saying,
but,
I know I'm
but
God.
you said the God is empty.
God is empty.
The God in me, the God I
Nothing.
am, there's nothing there. So there's nothing
Right.
to learn. There's nothing to awaken
Nothing to learn at all. No.
That's right. So I just
Nothing to
basically
learn.
have the incarnation. I wake up and I'm or whatever, and then I'm back to where I was basically, and which is great. Don't
It
get me
seems
wrong.
like you're back to it. You never left it. You're just aware of who you really are.
Yeah.
All knowledge goes out the door. If you're in a physical body and you come into the world as an awakened self, call it a Jesus if you like, or a Ramana, or a Ananda Mayamai, pronouncing that wrong probably, someone like that came in fully aware. You need to learn how to speak. You need to learn probably how to write, and you may need to learn some mathematics, reading, writing, arithmetic, they used to call it. You need to feed yourself, you need to clothe yourself, and you need to house yourself. Those basics are consistent if you're in a physical body and you want to function. If you're living in the woods with nature, you may not even need that. But if you're operating, functioning within the dream, those are the basics. That's all you need. Everything else will come to you. Ramana, for example, he stopped reading totally when he was 14, when he became aware of who he really was. After that, I think there might have been some reading, but most everything that came to him spontaneously. Even quotes from books that he'd never read came to him spontaneously, because all so-called knowledge is available to those that are empty. The word empty, or being nothing, is a divine dichotomy, because in reality it's also all that is. So all knowledge is available within nothingness. There's absolutely no way to make sense of that, but that's the truth. So whatever is required in the moment, and this includes food, shelter, and clothing, comes to the self in the moment that it's required. Of course, the mind thinks a lot more is required than is really required.
I can
So
relate
everything
to this.
just comes.
I can relate to this, and this we talked about. Touch on this a little bit earlier toward the top of the show, and that's in my own experience. And I'll use this as an example. When I let go of what I needed, which was a long time ago, slowly but surely, things would fall into place. You know, opportunities would arise, and literally in the physicality. And Morgan's experienced it over the last few months with me as well. Somebody asked a question along the lines, and I can't pull it up right now, but they asked a question a few minutes ago. When you're communicating with spirit, I'm using human terms, whether it be an apparition, third eye, or whatever the case is, then who is that basically? And I've come to understand and experience in physical apparitions and not, that it's me. Do you have anything to add to that?
It's an illusion in almost every case. It's like channeling. Almost all of it is illusion. It's made up from the collected knowledge that an individual has, and it's what that individual believes in the moment as a representation of God.
I can buy that, but you said almost all of it's an illusion. What's the part that's not?
Well, first of all, you're not talking to anything. When you are free, you're not talking to anything. God is always speaking as God. God is not with you. God is not overshadowing you. God is not a spark in you. God is you, as you. Major, major difference. So when God is speaking, it's not connected to a voice which is guiding it. It is God speaking. Period.
That's right.
So
So
there's no visions. There's no apparitions. There's none of those
well,
things.
oh, hang on a
That's
second.
separation.
No, hang on a second. No, it's not. Now, I just said that everything that I see and I've experienced, I've come to understand going back 8 years ago when I saw Jesus in the tree. I knew that wasn't Jesus. Okay, that might take me a while to figure out that was me because I'm God. Now, if I have experiences alone and I have apparitions appear in my bedroom in physicality, translucent, but in physicality, or I have a light beam, geometric dome appear over me as I walk through a soccer field and all the weather stops, or whatever the case is, animal encounters, or even talking to somebody else. Because I realize sometimes when they talk to me, you know, it's almost like they don't even know what they're telling me. It's me speaking to me. But my point is this: now you have a kicker. Now you have two people who are in the same space, experiencing the same apparitions, getting the same message.
2,000 people.
Well, could be 2,000 people. I'm just saying two at this point. Two, Morgan and I in a bedroom, and other people. I'm sure they've had this happen. What part of the experience is not an illusion?
None of it. It's all an illusion.
Okay, well, you said a minute ago most all of it. You said most all of it was an illusion, and I just want
when you're free, then none of these things happen, and so there is no illusion at all. Let me give you a specific example. Ramon is talking to Papa G, and Papa G is bragging about all of these gods that he's been playing with for 25 years that manifest. They knock on his door and show up just like physical beings at his door. And so Ramona says, "Are they here now?" This is a true account of what actually happened. Ramona said to him, "Are they here now?" And he said, "Well, no." Well, then they're not real. If what is true is not always present, then it's not true, which is virtually everything. What is true is always present, never goes away, doesn't come and go. Of course, in Miracles says nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies.
Well, maybe it's present and you just can't see it. Doesn't mean it's not there.
If you are aware, if you are free, if you are the self conscious, then whatever is always is, and you're aware of it.
Yeah.
It's never not there. It's never not there. This is the simplicity of it.
I saw a post today, and it was meant for me. It said, "If you are unwilling to be wrong, you aren't committed to knowing the truth." And that's why I go back to nobody knows, because there's really nothing to know. But here we are back in this video game. Are we here? There's got to be a purpose to being here. Now, if it's the same game over and over and over again to come into your full awareness of what you are, I can understand that. But again, like everything else that you're talking about, there's levels to it. And you explained this a second ago. It's an opportunity. It's another opportunity to further expand, I guess.
It's an opportunity to wake up.
Yeah.
You could say expand. It's just the full awakening of the God that you are. And yes, it does repeat. It has changes because conditioning changes. But the world that you live in changes because the conditioning changes. But the many things repeat because you, the slumbering God self, didn't get it. And so they have the opportunity over and over and over and over again, thousands of times in some cases, to get that, oh, this is not me. This is not true. And then the next thing and the next thing. That's what I call self-discovery.
So we don't gain that awareness in every incarnation, even if it's at the last millisecond of what we might call physical death.
No.
Okay.
No. When you wake up, the conditioning and the manifestation of conditioning and the mirrors that emanate from that conditioning as your world, none of that exists any longer. The world is there, but you don't see it as a mirror of who you're not anymore. You see it as what it is. It's an emanation of love.
So
It's seen totally different.
does the reality change because the conditioning change, or does the reality change because the person elevated?
Reality never changes. The awareness of reality changes when you are free. When you are not free, reality changes constantly. Anyone would say, well, look at the history books. Everything's changed over and over and over again. That's the mind of a sleeper. That's the mind of most of humanity sleeping to reality.
And
The reality is there is only love, and the emanation of love manifests in this case as a universe.
Then again, we could all be beaten at the same vibration. It just doesn't look that way because we don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know.
If you are free, you know. And if you're not free,
well, that's your
then
version
you
of
talk
free.
about it.
But
Pardon?
that's your version of free, or somebody else's version.
No, I
of
don't
free.
have a version of free. I am free.
Well, I am free. I am soul. But my version.
No, you're not a soul. A soul is an illusion too.
Well, that's your opinion.
And
that's your
I
your
have
truth.
no opinions.
That's
I
your
have no opinions.
You obviously do. That's your truth. Is that your truth, or is that your opinion?
Okay.
That's why I love talking to you, because it's
Yeah.
intellectually challenging and stimulating.
Well, I don't speak from the intellect because that's the mind.
Well,
And I am definitely not speaking an opinion or a perspective.
Well, when you say that it's not this way or it is this way, you are speaking an opinion, because at that point you're creating separation, because somebody can either say, I choose this or I don't choose that. So and even what I just said would fall into the same category. I
never say the way things are. I say the way things are not. That's all I do.
What's the difference?
There's an enormous difference. You
There's
cannot
no difference.
you can't put a frame around infinity.
If I say this table is not blue, or if I say this table is blue, what's the difference? Because you might look at the table and you might see it as a different color, right? Or how do I even know if my blue is the same as your blue?
There is no me to say that. There is no John McIntosh. He's long gone.
Well, there's the Todd Medina, and I am soul.
Okay.
And I'm going to give it hell.
Okay.
Because if it's a game, we're here for a reason, and it can't just be to wake up every damn time. Because if we don't, because
not every time, only once.
Well, because if we wake up or we don't wake up, we still wake up.
Eventually, everyone wakes up.
There is no time, so there is no eventually. It's right.
Exactly. Now. Yeah, even that's an illusion.
That's right.
We've never not been awake.
Tell everybody where we can find your books. You got, like 24 books now?
I guess 20, 24, 25, whatever. JohnMcIntosh.info is my website. John McIntosh is spelled McIntosh. JohnMcIntosh.info is all where my website, my books, videos, etc. are.
And just in a quick description, how was your visit? How was your journey when you went to the
retreat that I and my partner shared in Vietnam for 3 weeks was exquisitely beautiful. Wow. It was a vortex of love. As the Course in Miracles says, where an ancient hatred meets a current day love is the holiest place on earth. And that's exactly what it was. Wow.
Beautiful, man. Beautiful. Until the next time, you have a happy holidays, and
thank you.
Hope you get to get out and about again with your partner. And best to you and her both.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right, man. Love. You take care.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.